to the Cajun dance and the Zydeco. Filet gumbo and a crawfish pie. Filet gumbo and a crawfish pie.
Welcome to Literary Gumbo, a continuing look at the world of writers, writing, and publishing, books of all kinds, magazines of all kinds. I'm Fred Klein, I'm the chief stirrer, and my guest today is the fresh food chef. Now try to say it fast. Anyhow, welcome to you, Suzanne Landry.
Thank you.
Newly anointed, the fresh food chef.
Yes.
But her book is called, which we're going to get into, her book is called The Passionate Vegetable, a very exciting, good-looking book. But I want to go back to your background, why you, because I know that you're also very much, you know, in terms of health and whatever, and I have a couple of personal questions to ask you, which is why I invited you down to the show.
Ulterior motive, eh?
Yes. But let's go back. As I remember, you come from the East.
The East Coast.
Okay, but tell me about yourself.
Well, my journey into this healthy eating and really doing recipes that would change our life and our health started when I was only 28. And my young kids, I had two at the time, two boys, and they had chronic health problems. One, the oldest one, who was 5, had ear infections, one after another it seemed, and bronchitis several times in a 1.5 year period of time. And I kept on going to a pediatrician who would hopefully would look for the answer to the question is, why is this chronic? And I never got anything more than another prescription for antibiotics. And I was getting very frustrated with that. At the same time, my 1.5-year-old had eczema. And again, what they wanted to give him was hydrocortisone cream. I didn't want to put cortisone cream on my young son's skin. So it forced me into looking for the answers. And I came across some books and started reading and saw the connection between what we eat and our health, which I'm sure everybody would agree to it, but not really get it. And I was beginning to get it. And when I started changing our diet, one of the books that I read alluded to the possibility that it might be a dairy insensitivity or sensitivity or allergy, but dairy was possibly the culprit. Took them off of dairy food. Long story short, the ear infections cleared up, never came back. Then bronchitis never came back. The eczema cleared up in 1 month. It was all gone.
Wow.
And they continued through the elementary and high school years without ever missing a day of school because they're sick. No colds, no flus. They didn't catch anything from any of the kids. And then fast forward from there, at the age of 40, I had another child. And I had already had several years of learning how to feed and raise kids healthy.
But still personal at this point, not...
It was very, well, I think after that, with 3 years after this experience, now I'm diving into health and food and studying more.
But you're still a mother who's trying to find...
Yeah, and you can't, and I recommend to your listeners, you don't just take major food groups out of your children's diet, okay, to experiment, but then if you find out that is the culprit, which in fact it was, you have to find out where else are you going to get your calcium from. You're raising kids. They have to have good calcium in their body for their bones. So I got into the nutrition study to find out where else can I get. So it wasn't just about eating healthy, it was about eating nutritiously healthy. So they're now 6'4", 6'3", and 6'1". And they were all raised without dairy food. So when people think you have to have dairy food to grow strong bones, is not true. There's tons of calcium and other foods, which you just have to know which ones to put in your diet. Plus, 2/3 of the world doesn't even eat the milk of another animal, so they're clearly getting their calcium from other sources. My youngest, that was born when I was 40, I didn't even put him on dairy food. Of course, I nursed him, but as soon as he was weaned, I just continued doing the same thing I'd done with the other kids. And even at the age of 2, 2.5, 5, all those early years where they get dozens of little colds, which is supposed to be common, didn't get any of that. Went
but
through
aren't
all
mothers saying that you should be, you know, depriving the kids of milk? I mean,
oh yeah, That was a long time.
Sounds
My
like
oldest is
scornful.
38 years old.
Oh.
There was nothing alternative. There was no soy milk on the market. I don't know if that I would have used it. But soy milk was a powder you bought. You could mix with water, and it just tasted like sand and water. It was awful.
Oh, really?
Wasn't what we have today. There was no substitute cheeses, no substitute milks. There was nothing. Goat's milk ice cream was a treat that they had once in a while.
Goat's milk.
Goat's milk ice cream, yeah.
Where Whole Foods has goat's milk?
I don't even know where I got it. It was some health food store back east. But it's something they had once in a while. Frankly, I closed my nose when I scooped it out because it wasn't something I thought very palatable. It was cold, wet, and creamy, so they didn't care. So they were fine. So they're healthy. All three of them are very healthy, and they're strong. And I started, at the same time, at 28 years old, I was diagnosed with an ovarian tumor. And it was just a cyst. It was a benign cyst. It was a fatty cyst. But they thought that it would be wise to remove the ovary. And at 28 years old, I didn't want surgery. And I wasn't completely sure I was finished having growing my family. So I went on a pretty strict vegan diet at that time.
That you chose for yourself? Or?
I did explore it. I did explore it, and then I did talk to someone who knew more than I did, and I went into a macrobiotic diet at that time, and in 6 months that ovarian cyst dissolved. Okay. And my body eliminated it, and I never had my ovary removed. Obviously, at the age of 40, I had another one. Yeah, so that's kind of the journey that pushed me into this, and I became passionate about understanding the connection of eating or health and what we eat, and I haven't really lost that passion. Now I've spent 30 years teaching it.
But so where have you been? Have you been teaching?
I taught back east.
Okay.
Then I moved to Florida. I taught in Florida. Taught in New Jersey.
Taught nutrition essentially.
Nutrition and not in a school setting necessarily, but when people take my cooking classes, they get a whole bunch of information they didn't think they were going to be getting. And it's all about the whys. Last night's cooking class, for instance, it's about the passion.
Where's your cooking class?
Here locally at Santa Barbara City College.
The adult education? Okay, well, that's wild. Give us a little commercial right now.
Well, I teach several classes each semester, and they can go online to Santa Barbara sbcc.edu/CE, and they can see the schedule. There are several teachers that are teaching. But
how many hours per
class? 3.
3?
Yeah, it's not a very long class. This Saturday I'm doing Cooking Fresh from Farmers Market. So I meet them down at the Farmers Market downtown. We go a tour of Farmers Market.
Maybe I'll see you there. I go there. I
go
there on Saturday. Yeah.
We're there about 9:30, and then
that's about time I go.
Do you? All right, we'll probably
Can I learn something?
Sure. You want to tag along? Sure.
Oh, wow.
Not for everybody else, but. But and then we go back to the kitchen and we cook what we have purchased at Farmers Market. So it's all about.
I've
fresh
always
and
seen those things in the book.
That's me.
In the book, and I've figured. Well, because I don't drive at night anymore, so I figured, well, they're all at night, and I won't even have a chance. But is yours?
My other classes are at night and evening. They are 6 to 9. There are a few teachers.
I took early classes in the computer there. So I love that whole idea.
It's wonderful. Those programs are wonderful.
Are they? But I worry about finances and.
It's still very inexpensive. These classes that I teach, I've done them in LA.
But it's whether the college is going to let the same continue to have the same wide variety.
Yes, they have had to trim down quite a lot. Yeah. But it's still, that class I think that I'm offering on Saturday, I think it's only $26.
And what do you call it now? What is the
Cooking Fresh from Farmers Market.
Cooking Fresh from Farmers Market. And what's the other one called?
The one coming up, the one I just finished is Passion for Veggies. And the one coming up in November 17th is Winter Warming Soups and Stews. And it's all healthy ingredients. It's all really...
We'll get to it because I'm a soup nut.
Good.
I'll
share with you some of the recipes too.
Well, I went through here.
Okay.
There were a couple of recipes because I make a pumpkin soup that is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I love pumpkin soup.
Anyhow, I was interrupting you. We were talking. We were talking about you as an educator. So you were talking about.
So I interlace into a cooking class information. I find that I might end up talking about intestinal flora. What is that, and why is it important to keep our intestinal flora strong? How does that relate to digesting our food? I do it in a layman's way. I mean, I'm not going to give them anything more than what I even understand. And then another class, I might end up talking about glycemic. Carbohydrates. I'll do a class on smart carbs for the holidays. I didn't offer it this semester, but I often offer a smart carb cooking. I think in the winter term next year, 2013, it'll be...
Is that the one I should, knowing my background,
possibly,
I should
because I'm going to talk a lot about carbohydrates. To clarify, there's a lot of confusion about carbohydrates for people. And I myself got sort of... pulled into the whole gluten-free thing. Now, there was no, years and years ago, there was no gluten-free alternative when it came to breads and cookies and crackers and pasta. There just didn't exist.
But okay, so what is gluten-free free of? I mean, what do you...
Gluten is the protein that's found in whole grains.
Okay.
So let's take wheat, for instance, which is the mother of whole wheat flour.
Right.
You
Or
take out the bran,
bread.
you have white flour.
Right.
And then, of course, from that flour, we make breads, cookies, crackers. We make
Okay.
90% of our flour products are made from wheat.
Okay.
And so 90% of our flour products have gluten in them. For some people, gluten is a problem.
Me? Do you
Seriously.
think, knowing me, do you think that would,
I don't
would be?
think. I'll tell you, if you had a celiac, you would know it. Celiac, people who suffer from celiac are intolerant to gluten, and they could double over in pain.
Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah.
But there are lots of people who feel that they're gluten insensitive and they want to avoid it, or maybe they're
And
avoiding.
there are gluten-free. I see all the gluten-free.
Yeah, and
stuff.
it's not such a great idea,
Oh, it
because here
isn't?
what happens. No, it all plays into this glycemic. So if you're not going to use wheat flour and you want to make a cake or cookies, you're using gluten-free products. Well, a lot of whole grains have gluten in them. So now you have to go to brown rice or white rice. Then you're using potato starch, maybe tapioca. There are gluten-free grains such as quinoa. I don't know if you've tried quinoa.
I've got about 4 things that I've never heard of that I want to ask you about. Okay, quinoa maybe.
Quinoa is available at all the Trader Joe's. It's the easiest whole grain to cook. It takes 20 minutes to cook. It's quicker than brown rice.
Okay.
It's light and fluffy. You can put anything with it, change it into all sorts of things. In my cookbook, I have several different recipes using quinoa. But quinoa is one of those grains that is gluten-free, and yet it's high in protein. So it's a good grain to have if somebody needs to stay away from gluten. But people who are still in the stage of eating, they're not eating whole grains, they're eating breads and pastas and cookies and crackers, and they're going for those gluten-free products.
Yeah.
And the gluten-free products are made out of flours that don't have any bran in them or fiber in them,
B-R-A-N.
or much fiber, basically the same thing. Without the fiber in it, you have the potentiality for a higher glycemic. Let me back up. Glycemic is an indication of how quickly a carbohydrate goes in my mouth and turns into blood glucose.
I see. Okay.
Every cell in my body needs blood glucose. I can get it from carrots, I can get it from brown rice, I can get it from a chocolate bar. I can get it from a lot of carbohydrates. Fruits are carbohydrates as well. But how quickly it turns into blood sugar will indicate whether it's a high glycemic or a low glycemic. And you want to stick to, if a person's trying to lose weight, watch their sugars because diabetes, you need to stay to the low glycemic foods. Essentially, they are mostly your vegetables and some fruits, like a blueberry, all the berry family, they're low glycemic. Pineapple, for instance, would be a high glycemic. So usually the ones that are sweeter, they tend to be higher glycemic. So anyway, with the glycemic index, if a food has with it protein, fiber, and fat, those 3 things take longer to digest. So if I eat that with a flour product that doesn't have, that is a high glycemic flour product.
I see your point.
Like white flour is high glycemic. White flour is high glycemic. But let's say I had a whole wheat bagel, not that I'm recommending people to go out and run bagels, but let's say I had a whole wheat bagel.
A half wheat bagel.
Which is high glycemic, by the way. Just because it's whole wheat doesn't necessarily make it a low glycemic. But let's say we put on that bagel something that had fiber, protein, and fat with it. What could that be? Almond butter? It could be some salmon. It could be cream cheese. I'm not saying that this is necessarily a health food item, but the fact that you have eaten it with protein, fiber, and fat it makes it harder and longer for your body to assimilate the blood sugar from that bagel.
I see. At
So
least
it's
I
food
understand the
combining.
reasoning. I understand the reasoning now.
It's
that I
food
didn't
combining that's important as well.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
what you're
yeah.
going to put with it.
I mean, because they told me that I told them for breakfast all I have is cornflakes and milk and bananas.
Okay.
And they said you need a protein, but why? You know, but I'm happy with this. Why should I add something else?
Well, the banana's are high glycemic.
Oh,
The
it is.
cornflakes are high glycemic.
Now I'm on shredded wheat. Is that any better?
Yes, it is.
It is?
Because the shredded wheat has more fiber in it than the cornflakes. You look at your label and see how much fiber it has. There's one thing about food
And
labels.
so now fiber, I got to look. I'm beginning to look at carbohydrates. Now I got to look at fiber
Yes,
too.
unfortunately, because it plays a role in it. So here you look at your nutritional
This
label.
was
on
not
your-
supposed to be. I'm making it personal. She's telling us for all of us to understand.
That's
I'm
right.
taking it personally. Go on.
Well, if you look at the cereal package or any, for that matter, any label.
I
on
now
anything,
look at
let's
labels.
at
I do
cereal.
look at labels.
The first thing you have to look at is the serving size. Do you know what your serving size
Yeah.
is in your cereal? What do they tell you that's a serving
I
size?
don't know. It's just one handful.
That's what you pick, but what do they say your serving size
Oh.
is?
Well, okay. It can't be. I mean, it can't be less. I would not think. Not much less, because I got maybe 12 to 14 little
Probably not.
shredded wheats.
Here's the shocking thing. Every cereal you
I
pick
gotta
up,
get ready. I gotta get ready for it. Yes. Okay.
every cereal you pick, you look it up, and they are not consistent. Serving size,
on
half
this-
a
what the
cup.
service-
Serving size, 3/4
Yeah,
cup. Serving
yeah.
size, 2 biscuits.
Yeah.
So why is that important? Half a cup would probably be about that much. It's 4
Yeah.
ounces. It's not very much.
Yeah.
My goodness, a two-year-old could probably eat 4 ounces. As adults, we're more than likely going to eat 2 cups of cold cereal, not a half a cup. So
I'd say if you were talking about this cup, that's about what
this
it would
may
be.
this may
That
be
would
8
it.
ounces. It's a kind of skinny cup, so it's probably 8 ounces. So at least that, so a cup. So if the cereal says a half a cup is the serving size,
Right.
you look down for your carbohydrates or your sugar, and let's say it says 8 grams of sugar
Yeah.
in a half a cup,
Yeah.
but you've just eaten a whole cup. Now you have to 2 times that 8. You're actually getting 16 grams of sugar in that cereal in the morning. So they deliberately do the serving size to reflect the nutritional panel
Yeah,
is
no,
pretty favorable.
yeah, I see,
They want that to
Sure.
look good,
Yeah,
so they
yeah.
figure backwards mathematically how much can we say they can have in order to make that look pretty decent. And that goes for the fiber as well. So if it only has 1 gram of fiber, and it's supposedly a good source of whole grains, and it has 1 gram of fiber, that is not a good source of whole grains. Because if it's truly whole grains, it'll have more fiber in it. I pick up these crackers all the time, these organic, natural, whole grain crackers, and I read the label to see how much fiber is in it. And most of them are pathetically 1 or 2 grams of fiber, and that's not enough to slow down the starch that's in the flour of the cracker. That's a starch, and the starch is what turns into glucose. And I can see that I have just complicated this.
No, but
I haven't answered your question. I've made it more complicated.
No, but what you have done is showed me that nutritionist who tried to help me didn't, she just accented the carbohydrate alert. And obviously there are other things that I should be looking out for, not just that. Because now I am paying attention to it. Anyhow, but let's get to your book. I don't want you. I want to. This is. To my mind, this is an education as well, an educational project as well as anything else.
Thank you, because that's what I wanted it to be.
So therefore, I'm going to ask you some of those names of things that I could not. Combo. It's Kombo.
BU.
BU.
Better not be spelled BU. That would be a typo.
Yeah, no, that's
What page was that on?
I can't read my own. I can't read my own.
Kombu is the Japanese name for kelp, and now that you've said that, Fred, maybe I should go back and change it and just put kelp. Kelp, we have that right out of.
I know what kelp is.
Yeah, it's
kelp
right there in the little bay there of Santa Barbara.
Kamut, Kamut.
Kamut is a form of ancient wheat, and it's very good for you. It's high protein, but it is a wheat product. A wheat grain.
Teff, T-E-F-F?
Teff is a non-gluten grain. It's highest in iron out of all the whole grains, And it's a tiny little dark brown grain. You can't even wash it in a strainer. It's that tiny. But you make a porridge out of it in the morning. What I make a cookie, a breakfast cookie that's quite acceptable for cancer patients, and I put teff flour in it to give them more iron. And the cookie, of course, has stevia in it, doesn't have sugar in it. Actually, you could probably do with this cookie. I'll have to get you the recipe. Yeah, it's not in the cookbook because this is what I do for the cancer patients.
Nori, N-O-R-I.
That's another seaweed. If you go to a Japanese
All I
restaurant.
keep on finding are the seaweeds. The seaweeds.
Maybe your body's wanting them. You go to a Japanese restaurant, the sushi that they roll around the seaweed, that's the nori.
She also uses the expression round vegetables, which I found fascinating. I just love that idea. And you really mean the round vegetables?
Cabbage, squash, they're cruciferous vegetables. They're great as a good cancer protection as well as very high in the fiber and a lot of the antioxidants that we need. Yeah.
Well, you introduce each section and sort of set it up health-wise and what's coming with it. And then you have something at the bottom, those little
bites of insight.
Bites of insight, and which of course caught my eye, and therefore I had to go through the book caring not about the recipe, but looking for the bites of insight. But the book is so easy to get into.
Oh, thanks.
As I say, the photography is terrific. The recipes are great. I think I told you that I'm a soup nut. So I was looking for vegetable soups, which I do care about, and there are a couple of recipes that I certainly would go to. I don't really cook much for myself. I live alone, so there's no need to.
Or soups are great because you can do a whole bunch, and then maybe you have it for a few days. Maybe you get tired of it. You freeze the rest.
Yeah.
You can do back to it. If
but
it's
I
the
do
only
cold
vegetable,
soups and I do hot soups too.
Oh, good.
I do.
If it's the only vegetable a person has throughout the day, that's not good. Because as soon as you cook vegetables, you lose the enzymes. And the enzymes are what helps us digest the food. We get enzymes from two sources.
See, that's another thing I got to watch out. I'm going to be.
You're going to be so sorry you met me.
Exactly. I can be myself shaking.
Do you have a raw salad during the day?
Sorry?
Do you have a raw salad during the day?
No, but I love Cobb salad. So I eat Cobb
That's
salad
okay.
a lot.
That's
I
okay.
eat Cobb salad a lot.
Okay. How about raw fruit?
Raw fruit all the time, but not the ones you're talking about. I eat strawberries, grapes,
The strawberries are low
melons
glycemic.
and melon.
They're okay. They're okay.
Yeah, but they're not the ones you talk. They're not the berries. They're not
Well,
the berries.
you want to, especially for diabetes, you want to watch the glycemic. Anybody can go online and Google glycemic index chart.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to have
And
to
there'll be
do.
tons of websites that want to show you what the glycemic is in a food. There's a great website called nutritiondata.com. And that's my go-to website to see the glycemic as well as the nutritional profile of a certain food. So you can put in the field papaya, for instance, and it'll tell you the whole, how much sugar's in a certain serving, and how much fiber, how much vitamins, and what the glycemic load is or glycemic index is on it. So, yeah.
Well, what are your favorite? I mean, because look at these photographs. I don't eat dessert very often. Talk about this. Just talk to meat or not. You do have chicken in here. You do have a couple of chicken recipes.
Yeah, when I meant meat, I meant sort of general reference to meat. I didn't want to put to animal or not to animal.
This is technically not vegan.
And I'll tell you the reason why I didn't do a vegan book. I could have
differentiate?
easily done a vegan book. In fact, the heart of this book, the information in this book, is to lead people to the understanding, if you're going to be vegetarian or vegan, this is how you can do it healthfully. Because I was, and I raised my kids vegan for probably 15 years. I'm an O blood type. So I learned, not just since I knew I was an O blood type, I've always known an O blood type, but I've seen the correlation between my metabolism, what really diet is best for me. What I get concerned with when I meet people, and I've honestly met thousands and thousands of students, I'm teaching for a long time, they'll follow the latest and greatest fad without really respective of their own metabolic type. So it isn't just your blood type, it's your endocrine system. Are you parasympathetic dominant? Are you sympathetic dominant? All these different factors. Now, there are people out there that do metabolic typing. But if a person truly wants to find out what diet is best for them, that gives them their best health, they should probably, look into just, don't follow the latest fad,
Oh, no, that's not. We got about 4 minutes, and I want you to talk about it. I want you to sell me on this book now. Because she's just gone back to print, or she's just going back to print.
For another printing.
So you're going to be doing other personal appearances?
I have scheduled a couple of book signings coming up. Isla Vista coming up November 10th.
Perfect. November 10th, Isla Vista.
I'll be in Malibu on November 10th at Bank of Books.
She'll be at the beach.
Bank of Books is book signing down there. I've already had a book signing at Chaucer's, Whole Foods. I've been around town. We have there's probably about, I think, 14 or so different locations that's carrying the book. And of course, Amazon has it as well. They used to ask me about the meat or not to meat chapter, and I wanted to address that. The majority of the students that have been in my cooking classes, even when I call it a vegetarian cooking class, there are people that I get 2 out of 25 people would be vegetarians.
Oh, really?
Everybody knows they need to be eating more vegetables, everybody. So to that end, I wanted to make the book friendly for those who want to eat more vegetables, even maybe want to substitute some meat-based dinners for vegetarian, but are not quite ready to give up their meat. And that's fine. That's kind of where I'm at anyway. So I did a lot of vegetables. There's probably vegetables in every chapter. Probably the dessert chapter not, but even in the breakfast chapter I have some recipes. So it satisfies both the vegan, the vegetarian, even people who are allergic. If I'm somebody that's dairy allergic, then this book is perfect for them because it is not based on dairy. A lot of vegetarian books that I have seen on the market, gosh, they put cheese in everything. If it weren't for the cheese, there'd be no flavor in the dish. So I'm putting flavor with herbs and spices without relying on some of the dairy to give it that creaminess.
And also the recipes, because I'm not the most efficient person, but the recipes seem to be easy to do.
Yeah.
They don't turn me off, which
Not even the kombu?
No, but
actually, I don't. I think that was in the Bites of Insight, but I think I left. I had a whole sea vegetable chapter I was going to put in the original book, and decided against this because I wanted to do a transitional book, a book that was meant for, as I just said, people who are meat eaters and want more vegetables in their diet, or vegans. If I were truly going to do a vegan cookbook, I would probably put back in that sea vegetable chapter.
But the rounded vegetables are always for the rounded.
You want to do at least some rounded vegetables. You want to eat vegetables that grow underneath the ground, and you want vegetables that grow above the ground. Because nature provides different nutrients in the vegetables growing in the ground. Like the vegetables that grow above the ground, many of them, think of tomatoes and peppers and things, high in vitamin C. Vegetables that grow down under the ground are not high in vitamin C. They're high in fat-soluble vitamins like vitamin A. So you have a balance of both. A lot of people think, oh, I've eaten my vegetables, I have a big salad every day. But they're not getting turnips and rutabagas and parsnips and winter squashes. They're not getting those in a salad. They're getting just some of the 6 or 7 different vegetables we put in a salad. So it's not well-rounded.
Let me jump a second. We got 27 seconds, but it said you also were to the stars. You did.
I was a private chef for a few Hollywood people. Yes.
Well, fortunately, you can just name one. We've got like 15.
Steven Seagal was